tonight.
Margot, thank you so much for having us here to share what I'm calling your ultimate love story.
Nothing compares to hearing that your child or a loved one has cancer.
I truly believe that we are all connected.
Life is a gift.
Margot Jacoby is the author of Love Lives, Becoming Martha ONeil, a biography of love.
Love and the different kinds of love. They're symbols of love. We do different things out of love to show our love.
Faith.
It's just helped so much too.
Music, travels, and celebrating the life of her daughter Martha, who passed away 10 years ago from cancer. I sat down with her in a memorial garden she built for her daughter, surrounded by photographs, newspaper clippings, stories, and life lessons.
Martha wanted her story told. As a matter of fact, when you were laying with her in her last time here, she said to you she wanted you to tell this story. Why do you think that was so important to her?
I think she just wanted me to write about her journey because she was worried about other people who were sick. But it became much more than that. This is not a story about cancer. This is not a memoir. This is a biography. You know, this is Martha. This is a story about Martha.
You start this story out as every good love story does from the very beginning, and you say, "I never felt such bliss as the first time I held you."
Martha is my first child, and she was born on the first day of summer. And as they say, it's the longest day of the year, and that was the longest day of my life.
As Martha grew older, Margot says she enjoyed getting to know her daughter as a friend.
And I think a story, even my own life right now that was relatable for me, is that point in life where your child gets to become your friend. And I think that you and Martha became best friends.
We did. And I feel very lucky to have, you know, my adult children as friends, and Martha certainly being the ultimate.
The ultimate friend and the ultimate mentor and teacher, not just to her mother, but to her students as well.
We talk a lot to young people about who they look up to. And throughout the book, it became very evident that you looked up to somebody younger than you, your daughter. At one point, maybe at her weakest point, you talk about admiring her strength while she was weak.
It was, her fortitude was, and tenacity and so forth it was wonderful. And it is that strength that tells you that life is worth living. Life is a gift, like so many other things, like faith, like love. And she hung on during things that I just don't know if I could do it. I really don't. And even when she didn't have a voice or a choice, and if she was asked if she wanted to be put on the ventilator, I had to speak for her. But before that, just seconds after that, Martha's nodding her head. You know, she was just a fighter. And we fight for our loved ones. We fight for things, our causes. And yeah, I saw her fight for life. And it was just a great thing to witness.
As fun as Martha was, because throughout her story, it is undeniable that she was full of life. She loved concerts. She loved to travel. By the end of the book, I felt like I knew her and I wanted to know her more. But she really did fight her entire life, not only for herself, but even her students. At one point, she talks about, you know what, when my student has a bad day, I have a bad day.
Yes. She had a way of really, just helping other people. And there were times when I actually even criticized her for it. It was like, do you really have to do that? Or do you really want to go the distance to help that person out? Or even drive with that person so they're safe to go to where their destination is. And, you know, she was always on a mission. You know, there was just no rest.
A mission to teach life's hardest lessons. She wrote journals to be included in this book and had conversations with her mom about maybe life's hardest and final lesson.
I forget where I've heard this quote, but it comes to mind that lessons in life are repeated until they're learned. And you did a whole chapter on letting go, and it was before you even knew that Martha was sick. You talk about, I believe was it your mother?
Had just passed,
Had
yes.
just passed, and you taught Martha about having to let go, and later in life, definitely a lesson that you needed to learn with Martha. How do you go about that?
After the break, that answer, the diagnosis,
I mean, I've had the carpet pulled from underneath me before, but nothing compares to hearing that your child or a loved one has cancer.
later, how to get through it.
It's 10 years later, going through worse than that. How do you get to this moment?
And a love story like no other. Before the break, we introduced you to Margot Jacoby, the author of Love Lives, Becoming Martha ONeil, a biography of love.
Love and the different kinds of love. And they're symbols of love. We do different things out of love to show our love.
Faith,
It's just helped so much too.
music, travels, and celebrating the life of her daughter Martha, who passed away 10 years ago from cancer.
Martha wanted her story told. As a matter of fact, when you were laying with her in her last time here, she said to you she wanted you to tell this story. Why do you think that was so important to her?
I think she just wanted me to write about her journey because she was worried about other people who were sick. But it became much more than that. This is not a story about cancer. This is not a memoir. This is a biography. You know, this is Martha. This is a story about Martha.
In the book, Margot exposes lessons she learned along the way, from overcoming everyday, mid-sized, and ultimate life challenges.
Life is full of challenges, and throughout the book, you go through the different types of challenges and how you overcame them and how Martha overcame them. The first set of challenges are kind of like everyday challenges, right? I remember at the beginning of the book, you talk about Martha being a toddler and falling down the stairs and how you deal with that. But then as life went on, you went through a divorce yourself, big challenge in your life. And Martha and her siblings ended up actually moving to North Carolina with their father. And we recently did an interview with a judge, and she was talking about child custody, and how if you put the kids first, you will always make the right decision.
And I said, if you put your children first every time, you will be able to get along with your ex. And I think I had some success getting through to people in that way.
You made a similar observation.
And you have to do what's best for the children. It was a very hard time in my life. But little by little, they all came back. So, it worked out okay.
A commonality for overcoming challenges like that to life's ultimate challenge, Margot says, was her faith.
Certainly, one of the things that helps us get through times like that, I know at least for me, is faith. And you describe in the book, faith is not something that you are born with. It is not something that is learned. It is something that's acquired. It's a gift.
There is a greater good. And yes, my faith got me through it. I learned a lot about faith from my mother and from Martha. Martha had tremendous faith. And, she didn't practice what I particularly practice, but it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. And you know, we just really had really great conversations about it. Afterwards, there's just such a void and numbness that, for me anyway, without my faith, you know, it would have been really hard to have kept going.
One of those moments where faith was her only ally was also the hardest day to live it.
Boy, having your world go upside down. I mean, I've had the carpet pulled from underneath me before, you know, with the divorce and the aftermath and so forth. But nothing compares to hearing that your child or a loved one has cancer. She was a purist. She didn't have any, I mean, she had symptoms of being sick, but you don't think it's cancer. You don't think it's something, you know, horrific. It was just total disbelief, but at the same time, you know, you just got hit by a Mack truck and, you know, the floodgates open. And, oh yeah, I know I said some very choice things, and some of them you probably were inaudible. I mean, at that time, I landed on the hospital floor. I mean, you know, it was it was like the end of the world when I got that news.
Whether it was the connection that final day between mother-daughter, the connection with their higher being, or connection through media to humanity, Martha believed in the power of being connected.
You know, I truly believe that we are all connected on this world in one way or another. And one of the things you did throughout the book that I thought was so unique and special was you related life to news stories of the time. And I think it was interesting to see how our life can interact with national news stories. At one point when Martha was sick, you compared the toxic waste in her body to an oil spill, which really on a superficial level I wouldn't have thought of, but in a deeper level, there was a connection there.
Mm-hmm. Well, she taught journalism at JCC. She also reading. She was a reader. So we would start the day off with me reading the Charlotte Observer. and we talked about, you know, the metaphors and other things that, you know, that make news relatable to what's going on in our lives. And that BP oil spill was just, you know, that was one of those stories. And Martha at that time was full of hope, and therefore we were full of hope. So it was, you know, it was just part of the living. You know, she was definitely part of the living and wanted to know what was going on in the world.
Something going on in the world for Martha, even from her hospital bed, was?
And we arranged a wedding, and I said, absolutely. We had a beautiful ceremony in our hospital room.
That love story, after these commercials, and later.
It's 10 years later, going through worse than that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get to this moment?
We'll be right back. Tonight, we've been talking with local author Margot Jacoby. Her book, Love Lives, is fulfilling her daughter's final wishes.
She just wanted me to write about her journey because she was worried about other people who were sick. But it became much more than that. This is not a story about cancer. This is not a memoir. This is a biography. You know, this is Martha. This is a story about Martha.
Martha, a teacher, traveler, and writer herself, lived a life full of love.
Love, and the different kinds of love. And, you know, they're symbols of love. We do different things out of love to show our love.
Martha was lucky enough to meet the love of her life at her parents' business in Barnes Corners.
Not only is this a story of your love for Martha, but there was also another love story within, there's several love stories throughout the book, but particularly Martha and Bill. I love their love story, and I'm not even sure I could tell it without crying, so I'll let you.
Well, they met at Tugger's, where they were both working for us. And I could tell just by looking at Bill when Martha walked in, and she doesn't walk in, she just kind of breezed in, that he was like, who is that? They were really, in love, but they had a whirlwind of a romance. And then I'll never forget the time when they became first engaged. Doug and I were sitting in the back of the house on a porch, and Martha and Bill come in very spontaneously with a 6-pack of beer and said, we're engaged, we're gonna get married. And it was like, okay. And we had the 6-pack with them and started planning right away. But it's a really sweet story. Bill definitely, it's her knight in shining armor. And it was, they did end up getting married.
As life happened, the wedding didn't go as planned, but Martha made sure it happened nonetheless.
Bill wasn't in North Carolina at the time where Martha was receiving treatment, and then ended up on a ventilator in the hospital. And she texted Bill to, get there as fast as he could, which he did, and she proposed to him. And she texted me because she couldn't speak at the time. She was on a ventilator. Can we arrange a wedding? And I said, absolutely. And her sister Maggie and I went to work fast and delegated, and it was, we had a beautiful ceremony in her hospital room.
Margot said that Martha taught her that it's these life moments that life's all about.
I think that's what you learn when somebody is dying. Is it's a weird thing, Alex, but it is a special time in life if you can do it. Not everybody dies like that, and we were lucky that we had that extra time with Martha, because we learned so much about dying and how to accept it and let go.
This book, talking about it publicly, scholarship funds and memorials, all in her daughter's name, are just part of a healing process over the past 10 years that has landed us here having this conversation tonight.
Now we are 10 years later from that day, and I hate to say that really there is somebody every day going through that moment. As somebody who is 10 years later, going through worse than that, how do you get to this moment?
Love, faith, a hope, and community. I'm so grateful for just the community we had of friends and colleagues and family, of course, with other people. You just don't do this alone. You don't do it with just your family. Thank God for family, but you do it with everybody backing you up.
After the break, where you can read the book.
And it's going to be available there for other
great.
people at home to be able to read it.
Wonderful.
And
Stay with us.
you shared with me the very last copy of the book, and I felt selfish keeping it for myself. So I talked with our friends at the library here at the Flower Memorial Library in Watertown, and it's going to be available there for other people at home to be able to read it.
Wonderful.
And I hope that this story, if somebody was watching tonight, helps somebody. And I thank you for talking about this story, because I know that it's a difficult story for you to tell.
This is how we go on, is yes, telling the story and getting it out there, and then knowing you, and what you did for me at CAS in 2014, and here we are again 6 years later. And you know, this enriches our lives. This is what makes life so special, is knowing people like you, Alex.
Right back at you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.